but like to the extreme, like yeah. Anyway, what we did last time, obviously we talked about the project. We're gonna do a little bit of that today. What we did last time, I wanted to kind of, to the nth degree, show you guys what you could do with the project. And we will have a moment today where if you still have lingering questions, concerns, whatever about that, we can talk about it. But in light of what we did last time, I wanted to have a more nuts and bolts conversation today. Okay, what does that actually mean? When it comes to the project, say you have it recorded, you're feeling reasonably good about it. Now the question is, how do I turn this in? Well, there's two primary ways that this is going to happen, okay? The first step in the process is actually how you decide to record the thing, okay? You could, most people do, choose option A, which is what I'm doing right now. Video. Your phone is great for that. I don't know if you know this. You record the video. If you do it that way, the only hurdle that can arise, and it seems to have actually gotten better the past couple semesters, but I still want you to know that it's a thing. Sometimes, dependent upon the file type, and most especially the file size, CourseDen will not let you upload a video. This is not to say it will never let you upload a video, but it depends. One second. So all I'm going to say is, be prepared for that hiccup. If you go to upload a video, it doesn't work, go ahead and try again. And if that doesn't work, it probably means CourseDen is not going to take it. You have to move to option A, we'll say 1, which is, again, what I do, because these videos are way too large most of the time. I upload my stuff to YouTube first, okay? Once it's uploaded to YouTube, you can just copy and paste the link to that video in a document. Then you can upload that document for your project, and I can get to it that way, okay? What was your question?
That was literally what I was about to say. I was like, can I just post a video unlisted on YouTube? And
Yeah. Well, I was going to cover that too. So the other thing to know about that, if you go that route, you have more options when it comes to YouTube. The only option you cannot choose is private. I was going to say, I'm kind of actually at a loss as to why that exists, if I'm being honest. But the way private videos work, only you can see them. So even if you give me the link, I can't watch it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, unlisted. Because if you have an
What?
unlisted link,
You can make it public
yeah.
or unlisted. Unlisted is basically private if you don't have the link. And of course, no one else will unless you give it to them. But choose one of those options. Make sure it saves, make sure it uploads. By the way, it usually takes a minute to do that, especially depending on how the Wi-Fi is wherever you're doing this from, okay? Once all that happens, copy and paste the link into a document, upload the document. There's your video, I'll be able to see it. The other option, option B, is audio only. Sometimes people do this. Now, the only thing about that, weirdly, in 2023, it's been my experience, it's kind of tricky to do that sometimes. It's not to say you can't make it happen, but especially if you're just trying to use your phone and do this, you're gonna have to like download an app. You're gonna have to mess around with it a little bit to make that happen. Out of the box, it'll do video. Tends to be most of the time, if you want audio only, you're gonna have to sort that part out. The good news is, because audio files are so much smaller, CourseDen almost never has trouble with those. It's like audio only, you betcha. So there's that. Any questions at this stage? I just talked to you a lot. Any questions about any of these like technical concerns when it comes to the project? Yes, ma'am.
Do you use sound effects?
Oh, wow. Don't think I've ever had that. Sure.
Like, when you...
I mean, yeah.
Have the laughter in the background.
Yeah, that would be interesting. The only thing I would ask, and this is a personal favor, I suppose, check the effects before you upload whatever, because I normally listen to them with headphones. I wouldn't want to have it turned up so I can hear you, and then you really blast me with something. Like try to equalize the volume if you take it. But yeah, that's fine. That's cool. I honestly, I don't think I've ever had anybody really do sound effects that I can recall. Yeah, that'd be fine.
This project is kind of perfect for me because I already have like an editing software on my computer.
That works.
So
Yeah. Well, and here again, like, it depends on how far you want to take it, but I would recommend anybody to edit it to a degree.
oh yeah, I'm probably going to do it.
Well, so here again, and I only know this part about iPhones, but I imagine like Android it isn't too dissimilar. I have iMovie on my iPhone, right?
Yeah.
All the videos I record the whole class. I take out chunks with iMovie and I save that. And then, so yeah, you have all kinds of stuff at your disposal. If you do audio only, I'm gonna date myself here a little bit, but like Odyssey, I think is still kicking around. It's a free app that you normally use to like edit songs, but you can just audio, it works for that. There's all kinds of free options. I'm not encouraging anybody to like spend money. There's free ways to edit your stuff. But yeah, that's a good catch as well. I forgot to mention that. Any other technical questions? Okay. Any questions about the project, other than technical stuff? I want to make this as focused as we can. Anything you're not sure about, or you want to ask me?
You said it has to be 20 minutes?
Ish,
Okay.
ish. Like, 10 minutes is too short. 10 minutes is too short. 30 minutes, I have probably already stopped listening.
Well, if we keep going for fun now.
If you want, hey, it's up to you.
How many minutes?
Do I know?
20?
Yeah.
Ish.
20-ish?
Yeah. Well, here again, returning to our conversation actually before class, 5 minutes will go by like nothing. It really will. And what we're ultimately talking about is stacking 3 or 4 of those together. Is not as long as you think. 20-ish minutes, 15, 18 minutes, something like that. It's not that long. Especially, because I know some of you have asked me about doing it with a partner. If there's 2 or at max 3 of you,
That should be pretty.
20 minutes is nothing.
Yeah.
20 minutes is nothing. And that's actually partly why I have it that high. But yeah, somewhere in that range. Ultimately, the hallmark of like how well you do on the project, okay, I know that's what you're worried about, is how much you actually have a conversation like what we've tried to talk about in class. Or again, according to our example, like what we talked about last time. It was a varied conversation. We went several different places, but I think we sort of spoke at depth about the ideas that we raised. If you're doing that in any way, shape, or form, you're probably gonna be all right. And I just want you to do that for a little bit. Make sense? Any other questions about any of that? Okay. Moving right along. Today, by the way, I had a lot to say to you. The thing I wanted to say before I said anything else, and I didn't, was given where we are in the calendar, stuff coming due, all that, this is like a catch-up day. This is a big picture day. This is I like to be really honest with you guys. I always envision days like today, there's really only 2 kinds of students. Either you're doing pretty well, and like maybe you're not quite done with, for instance, the paper is due Friday. You're not quite done, but you're gonna get it done. It's really not gonna be a big thing. Or, that's fucking words. Like there's 2 different kinds, primarily. And so the last class before a paper is due, rather than have a detailed workshop, anything like that, I want to triage the thing. Is anybody familiar with this term, triage? Triage is what you do on a battlefield or in a catastrophe. Like if there's no hospital, so we set up tents, and bro, we might have to take your leg. That's what we're doing today, okay? So we're gonna talk about the paper, but we're gonna do it in a big picture way. Gonna try to do our best to keep you from making big mistakes. Because I think that'll benefit everybody no matter where you're at this point. All right. Before we do that, I do want to entertain, just for a moment, any questions you guys have right now about the paper. Anything at all that you're not sure about or whatever.
Well, you can go first.
Oh, you can.
I mean, mine wasn't really a question. It was just kind of a statement.
Okay.
After the class ends, I was going to go to the writing center and make my 2 appointments.
Okay.
I figured I should tell you about that. So I told you it wasn't really a question. That's why I was like.
That's all good. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So is it okay if our works cited page is separate from the 4 pages?
Technically, it's supposed to be. Although in a lot of classes, you'll have people ask you to do it on the same page just to save, I guess, scrolling. But technically, unless they've updated the formatting and I forgot, it's supposed to have its own, like, it's supposed to be a page break to get to your works cited.
Okay.
But either way is fine with me.
Okay, because I have 4 pages already.
Yeah.
And then because someone told me that sometimes professors count one additional page as the works cited page.
Interesting.
I've never heard of that before in my life. Maybe in a different discipline.
Okay.
And I have really snide remarks for that I'm not going to share. But no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I was just worried because mine's is 5 pages with the works cited page. Like it's 4 with the
Yeah.
essay. And
No.
5.
No, you're good. You're good. Other questions about the paper?
Could you become a mark for class?
Sure. Okay. Other questions about the paper?
Okay, that actually kind of raises another question.
Can you do it too?
No, not what Alicia said, but.
Okay.
I meant in terms of, so for works cited, my paper is like 3 pages, or it's technically 4, but it's really 3.
Technically.
It's like 2 lines on this 4th page.
That's not 4 pages, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
It's on the 4th page.
You're getting there, though. You're getting there.
so my question was,
Yeah.
for my works cited, do you want me to go on like a 5th page, or do you want me to go lower on the 4th page?
I did just answer. Technically, it's supposed to have its own page.
Okay.
But to be entirely clear, don't care. I want you to have it.
Okay.
So
Because I only have like 2 articles.
So have, you just have to have one,
Okay.
but either way is fine with me. Other questions about the paper?
That's it.
Okay. I mean, I got a thing we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk to you about it, but I just want to see. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking. Some of you will probably feel like this is redundant at this point, but I promise you, it is not, because I have been looking at your papers. You guys approach me after class, or you send me stuff, or I see papers. We need to talk about this one more time, okay? One more good time. This will probably be the last. It's like when you meet up in the cafeteria and everybody signs your books. You know, it's one of those like, introductions. 4 parts. What are the parts?
Book, intro to text, but the intro to text is different for this one.
It is, and we'll get to that. Good.
Roadmap and your thesis,
Good.
and then it's split in between your intro to text and roadmap.
So, before we launch into what changes a little bit for this paper, let's make sure we understand what these are meant to do. Hook, if you want one, because it's optional. But we've talked about it several times. You guys kind of come into this class having some idea of what the hook is supposed to do, right? Cool. Have it, don't, that's up to you. What matters is much more is everything after that. Introduction to the text. That's where you tell me specifically what you're talking about. So for the first paper, in this guy's movie, The Social Dilemma, blah, blah, you're just very briefly laying out for me the text. Yeah? You got to do that from the jump. Roadmap and thesis. Again, thesis, I feel like, for the most part, you guys feel okay about what a thesis is supposed to be. Still some questions about what maybe comprises an argument, but you know what it's supposed to be. Roadmap, you guys still fight me on. Roadmap leads up to the thesis, right? And this can be, depending on the paper, several sentences, you know, kind of a paragraph unto itself. Which brings me to the changes for this paper. Number 1, I am still encouraging. I am not mandating, but I am encouraging you guys to consider breaking your introduction into 2 smaller introductory paragraphs, okay? And I mean it when I say, because I've still, like I've had several people in the past couple days send me their papers, and their introduction is not broken up, which is fine. But honestly, I don't think the ones I'm thinking of, none of those had much of a roadmap, and their thesis suffered as a result. because this was longer and it swallowed up, it ran that shot clock that I've talked to you guys about, and they just didn't have much of an argument. That's a problem. So to assuage this issue, I'm going to give you guys vocab words today, okay? Break that sucker up. Give me the introduction to the text. When that's over, move to a new paragraph. Force yourself to give me some kind of a roadmap, which will lead to, hopefully, a better thesis. That's what we're out to do, okay? The other changes. Two to three sentences on what happened. 2 to 3 sentences on the response. This is a longer introduction to the text. And again, you need more room for it. Hopefully, you guys know this so well that you're tired of hearing me talk about it. So I'm going to give you a specific example. I looked at a paper yesterday, actually. Helpfully, it was an event that I knew about, and I feel like it's one you guys probably know about too. The student I'm thinking of is writing a paper about Kevin Hart. Like you were shocked. I was like, yeah, I mean, it happened. Yeah, he famously was going to host the Oscars, and then that thing happened that seems to always happen, where somebody like investigated his Twitter and found that he had like some homophobic tweets / jokes from literally 10 years before. Okay. And then shortly thereafter, controversy ensued, right? We've moved to the response now. He never hosted those Oscars. That didn't happen. He initially didn't want to apologize, claimed he'd done so before, and then eventually he did sort of apologize. People were still pretty pissed off at him. That's our first section, right? Now here's what's interesting, and this is the part I want you to pay attention to. They had an argument. They were kind of bummed with my opinion of it, but they had one, and it was this. I'm generalizing a little bit because I'm using my, I wanted to say imagination.
I thought you were about to say that.
Jesus Christ, memory. Anyway, basically their argument was that people overreacted to Kevin Hart and the situation. Okay. I want to be very clear with you. That's not what we're doing in this paper. Okay? What we are not doing, because this is one of the big traps you can fall into, is taking whatever happened and whatever the response was and sort of passing judgment on that response. Should we have or should we have not responded in the way that we did? That's not what we're doing, okay? What we're doing is taking that response and instead thinking about why we responded that way. What it might say about us as a people, society, and culture, that we did those things, okay? So what I told the student, and what we're going to start at today, just for a little bit of discussion, he described it as an overreaction, all right? Maybe. But again, we can't judge it like that. So instead, we're just going to say a strong reaction. Less judgy at the very least. Probably a pretty good descriptor. Pretty strong reaction. People calling for the guy's job, all this other stuff. Okay. Just for a couple minutes. And because it's a thing I think most of us know at least a little bit about. Why do you guys think we reacted so strongly to the old tweets from Kevin Hart? He shouldn't host the Oscars. He shouldn't be in movies. We got to get this guy. Why do you think? Yeah.
Because his brand is about comedy and
They were jokes. I'm not trying to cut you off. So, one perhaps piece of our roadmap, and we're just trying to develop this as we kind of on the fly, right? You had this question of brand. Maybe that's one of the pillars of our argument. Let's talk about it for a couple minutes. He's a comedian. Have you guys ever seen, I would assume you've seen at least some of his movies. Have you guys ever seen any of his stand-up? A little bit? What how would we describe his brand? Because that might need to be part of our conversation, right? Prior to the controversy, right? Yeah.
He mostly talks about like his past experiences or things that are going on and turns it into like comedy.
Yeah. Well, specifically, and again, I'm just using my memory. I mean, what is a lot of his comedy about? He talks about his life. What'd you say?
His height.
Yeah. One of them is the fact that he's a little guy. Yeah, that's true. What about his life? What do we know about his life from his comedy?
Things that have happened to him.
Yeah.
The only ones I've really watched are him and like The Rock going back and forth. So
Well, Dwayne
What?
Johnson and Kevin Hart maybe that do.
yeah, like
Well, that's the other thing too. So there's two routes we can go. One is, and I'll just cut to the quick on what I was saying because we may just do this other one instead. To my mind, anyway, because I've seen a bunch of his stand-up. I watch a lot of stand-up. Talks about being a dad and being married. You know, that is kind of part of his brand.
Being a dad.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. Possibly, like we're kicking around the very beginnings of arguments we might make. Might it have elicited such a strong reaction when a guy, little though he may be, is seen as like one of America's dads? Do you know what I mean? When you go into dad's old tweets and you're like, Dad, what the fuck? Right? Like, so that's one idea. Okay? The other one we can consider, because I think it's also powerful, but it's a little bit different. He is sort of, kind of, like he has Rock-like status. Would that be fair to say? Like he's approaching, like he's in the same celebrity stratosphere as The Rock. What is that? Because that's different. I mean, maybe it's still comedic because he's a funny guy, but I don't know that we view him as a dad if we're thinking of him like The Rock. Do you know what I mean? What kind of brand is that? That kind of person.
Movies are also like comedy.
They are. And they can be kind of different sometimes. Like he isn't always the same guy. Although here again, they are seemingly always bringing up his height. Or like if he's in the movie with The Rock, I assume The Rock is going to throw him at some point. Like it's kind of, you know. But apart from that stuff, like when we talked about Selena Gomez, right? We talked a lot about her brand and how people picture her. We're trying to do the same kind of thing with Kevin Hart now. How do we picture this guy, do you think?
I think like laid back, down to earth type.
Just a normal dude.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. What did you have?
I said a family type of guy.
Yeah. Well, it can be both. I think both of those can kind of exist together, right?
Like a fun person that's like in a group.
Yeah. So what you guys have all, like a normal-ish person, maybe with a family that you would like to hang out with, would be cool to hang out, would be fun, you know? What does that sound like to you guys? What kind of person does that sound like? Down to earth, fun.
My friend.
Yes. Yeah. Well, think about this. The way you envision Kevin Hart, and I think you guys gave a pretty good description of his brand, okay? Now, because we brought it up, think about the way you envision The Rock. Does The Rock, his brand, does that strike you as the kind of person you would hang out with?
Jim Bro, that's not it.
Do what?
Jim Bro, that's not it.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it just either he's too intimidating or like just not, like it doesn't strike you as like, hey, we can go. We're gonna go get a beer or whatever. You want to come? And he's like, I'm a fucking Rock. Ah, it's true. It seems almost unapproachable, I would argue, at least compared to somebody like Kevin Hart's brand, right? That's interesting. So the brand is something like,
Friendly, familiar.
what is that?
Like friendly or familiar.
Familiar is interesting. Would it? approachable, right? We could know him, we might want to know him. Cool. Well, is there a way to think about how this occurs in light of this? Just theories. Any theories you guys might have?
I guess the idea that people had of him kind of broke
How so?
because they saw that he is flawed and that he has
Yeah.
flaws, and that this perception or this idealized version of him that they had
Yeah.
is no longer there because he's flawed.
Yeah, well, all right, so the beginning of our argument here might be, and I like this idealized, right? This idealized version of him. I'm going to hit you with another vocab word, is sullied. That means it's like made dirty or impure, you know? And yeah, we have this question of like purity, which is weird, just to be clear, because we just said he's relatable. He's a friend. If you're talking about being able to relate to somebody, isn't kind of part of that thinking they're kind of like me? And like, if you stop me for half a second, like, do you have flaws? And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. My wife came to work this morning and I come in later than her and I'm not going to tell you exactly what she said, but the gist was like, are you going to do anything today? Because I was on the couch playing Chrono Cross
So she was calling you lazy?
a little bit. Chrono Cross is a Japanese RPG from the 90s. She's like, are you going to do anything? I was like, yeah. Oh shit, this doesn't look good. Right? So I have flaws, you know? I want to push on that a little bit. Flaws are one thing. We do all have them. Kevin Hart is small. Maybe that's his flaw. I don't know. Like I'm saying, like if you're building the perfect person, this is no hate to Kevin Hart, but if you envision an idealized person,
You're not gonna be 5 foot.
I think he looks more like The Rock.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I think
I like
people
flaws.
are okay with flaws that you can't control rather
Ah.
than ones you can control.
Ah, maybe that's part of it.
Because you can't control your height, but you can control how you say things or what you say.
Okay. So
I've heard it.
so it's
I've heard it.
It's something about how, so now basically what we're arguing, he maybe doesn't lose the relatability in some ways, but it's a choice he makes for us. Choices he made is past tense. That we find troubling, that doesn't fit the brand, right? Okay. How does that get us to, I think we're rather close, but how does that get us to the strong reaction? The other way to pose this question, what might that say about us? If we're going to, I'll recap. If we're going to say that the brand he started with, he sullies that somehow, he diminishes it somehow with the choice that he made when he made those tweets and those jokes. Why do we react so strongly to that? Why do we care so much is ultimately what we're saying, right? Yes, sir.
Because everyone knows that we all have free will. It's a choice to make this decision.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think because if you're my friend or I see you as a friendly person, I'm not gonna think that you're gonna judge me for something like that, and making a statement like that is kind of judgy. But I also think that situation has something to do with like the timing.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like he made a joke about like gay people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made a couple.
Yeah. And even though it was 10 years ago, at
Yeah.
the time that he was gonna host Oscars,
Yeah.
it could have been that time when the gay rights and stuff was
Yeah.
heavily in the media. I feel like
Yeah.
if that's the case, they're gonna dig up how you feel about that.
Well, all right, so you've kind of raised, I almost wonder if that'd be a different thing in our roadmap, a different consideration, but this question of timing. We're gonna table it for just a second, because I think it requires further exploration. But that's a good idea. Are your hands up over there? I can't tell. Kind of. Well, then kind of give me something.
It's- You are who you're friends with usually, so you're not
Ah.
gonna be that type of person.
So this is interesting. So what's interesting, because I think this is part of it too, if we kind of see him, if not as a friend, as a person you could be friends with, do you see what I mean? We do. I mean, I don't know if you've had this experience yet. I've had it a bunch, back when I had friends. I'm almost 40, full-time job, kids. I don't have friends. I have Xbox Live. Do what?
Almost 40?
Yeah. I'll be 37 this month.
Why did I
Do you think he was more or less?
No, I'm not
I
gonna
get that
lie.
all the time.
I don't know why I was under the impression that you were in your late 20s, early 30s.
I get that all the time.
Wait, how old were you?
Why did I?
The mask has come off and his face is wrinkly. No, I'll be 37 this month.
I don't know why I thought you were like 29, 30.
I got 26 the very first.
I get that a lot.
26.
I get that a lot. Anyway, let's move on. The point is that if you've ever had this experience, if not, you probably will at some point. When you find out, I mean, it's almost, you gasped when we brought him up, right? Like, when you have a friend who says something to you and you go, what? It's a little bit because maybe it was whatever the hell you just said, but also, isn't this like, I thought I knew you type of thing, right? That is, we assume because we're friends, we share a lot of the same worldviews, same opinion, like that's kind of how friendship works to an extent. And when all of a sudden we don't, doesn't that maybe call that friendship into question in a way, Or like we're not as good of friends as I thought we were. We don't have the same perspective like I thought we did, that type of thing. One agree. Okay. Well, so here's my thought, because I want to move past this so we can get a couple more ideas. Specifically to his brand, anybody you might talk about, branding could come up for damn near all of them probably, but specific to Heart's brand, okay? I thought we were friends, bro. Is ultimately what we're trying to think about when it comes to this section of our argument, right? Solely is his brand by the choices he made, yeah, whatever, because his perspective doesn't align with our own. And all of a sudden now we can't be friends. That's enough of an argument for a roadmap. There's more to say about it, but that's what a thesis is for. Okay? So we gotta set this aside for just a moment. I do want to try to at least get one more down. And you gave us timing. Let's talk about timing. There's different considerations here. One is, it was in and I only know this because I looked at the paper yesterday, like 2018 or whatever. Which is wild, by the way. It doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago. Yeah. But anyway, there was, I guess, I'm trying to cast my mind back to 2018, maybe like more of a conversation publicly about gay rights and things like this. You could also just say 2018, 2020, that whole time now is different from 2010 when he made the remarks, Again, in light of the conversation that you've alluded to. When I was in high school, the F word was pretty popular. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about fuck. I'll say that one. So the point being,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you got me now. You got me now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say fuck all day. The other one, not so much. But the point being that when the jokes were sort of re-examined, they were from this previous time when at the very least it was more okay to say the things he said, as opposed to 2018 people were like no, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, right? What about that? Are there any other, we'll say, concerns of the timing of the tweets being unearthed? What I mean by that is the fact that it's right when it's announced he's gonna host the Academy Awards,
Also, like, just the time when everything.
Yeah, like, it still would have mattered. It still probably would have caused him a whole bunch of grief if it had happened 6 months later or whatever, right? But the fact that it happened, and in my memory, like a week or something after, it was announced he was going to host these things. It's like, oh, by the way, kind of fucked up jokes he made 10 years ago,
I guess because they didn't want an association with him after they found out.
Oh, don't worry about them so much. That's just corporations being corporations. They don't care if you kill kids as long as nobody finds out. They're about money. They're not about.
That's true.
But they recognize the thing that we're trying to talk about, which is that it bothered people so much that they probably shouldn't have him host, right? So what's that about?
Representation.
You're good. What do you mean?
Like, if it's that big of a group of people saying that, calling out this person, that's
Yeah.
not somebody that one, the company wants to represent, and two,
Yeah.
this person would represent the entire show for these other people as well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see you on the show. I'm not going to watch the show.
Ah. So again, from the company's perspective, which we're not interested in very much, but they're worried about their bottom line, right? But what we're thinking about is why is that bottom line affected? And it's this question of maybe representation of, you're talking like being reminded of.
Yeah, if you're not representing me, if you're, making jokes and slandering
Yeah.
me.
Okay, so what you're getting at, and I think it's actually a continuation of this. We had initially, his brand is that, and then we say it's sullied, and we start talking about why. Perhaps this next argument is further examining how it is sullied. What I mean is, it's not as if Kevin Hart, his brand is damaged and now he doesn't have a brand anymore. It's just different. He's still fucking Kevin Hart. He still has a brand. But now his brand, we'll say, is complicated. And it's something about, you're saying he's now associated with, well, I was gonna say homophobic ideas / perspectives, right? Yeah. And the timing is ultimately an issue because he's about to be on TV for a thing that millions of people watch. And let's push on this a little bit more. Talk to me like I'm dumb. Why does it matter to us? I think this is ultimately the question here. Why might it matter to us that the person we see on screen shares our ideas or at the very least doesn't lead us to think they stand against them? Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's kind of what we're getting at here. We gotta try to describe that mechanism. Like if you were watching the Oscars and you saw Kevin Hart as all this is going on. Does anybody in here, by the way, watch the Oscars? Yeah, I don't. My wife will. I don't. I was like, why? But people do this. A lot of people do it. Point being, they were worried, as you guys point out, that when people tune in, they see Kevin Hart as all this is going on, they're like, oh, this fucking guy, he said the homophobic stuff. Like, dude, like why? Why do we do that? Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, we don't want, the same thing. We don't want someone who is representing harmful
But why?
I feel like a sense of mistrust, like I can't trust what you say anymore. Like I don't wanna listen to you because I know you might say something negative.
Like if you're against something, you're against like essentially the humanity.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I mean, it's basic human right to love who you want to love.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
if someone's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
standing against it, it kind of like,
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to like misquote what you're saying here. I guess it might help. The only tweet of his I remember, and apparently there were a couple, but one of them was like, if his son, I'm gonna get this wrong somehow because I'm using my memory, which is a bad idea, but like if his son ever, like if he ever came in and his son was like playing with like a dollhouse or something, he would break the dollhouse over his son's head, something like that, is what he said. So kind of homophobic, but mostly just like gender problems there, you know?
because he's being aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think of the only other example that strikes me of like a similar magnitude, when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee at football games, you had a bunch of people saying they weren't gonna watch the NFL anymore, right? And again, the question is, because again, that's a dude taking a knee before the game, that's not affecting the game. Why don't those people want to watch if they feel like whatever he's representing somehow is against like ideals they have? You see what I mean? Why do we do that?
I'm like, I'm reading what he said now, and
Yeah.
it's stupid. Like it's not even like.
I think I want to say he has said at some point, because he's made several apologies, like one of them was like, yeah, those are stupid jokes back from when
Well, initially,
I wasn't as good of a comedian.
Initially, it states that he refused to apologize, so I think that's also,
Well, he said at one point that he had apologized already,
yeah.
and like years previous, he had made some kind of the way the student characterized it to me, like they didn't feel like it was like a full apology. But yeah, I mean, here again, also I worry we're getting short on time. Like, let's eyes on the prize here. Why do we give a shit? That's ultimately why we're saying. Why do we give a shit if Kevin Hart hosts the Oscars, right? Or why did other people give a shit if Colin Kaepernick takes a knee before a fucking football game, right?
Social status.
Status?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so when I say social status, I mean like, I guess like, when I say social status, I mean like, I guess like their positioning and how famous they are. Because like, a lot
Yeah.
of people care what you have to say if you're like famous. Because
Yeah.
if I have 1 million followers on Instagram and I say something like racism is cool, like obviously I'm gonna get backlash for it.
Yeah.
Rather than someone who's a nobody. Like, does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but also by way of that same mechanism, no one would know if you said it if you didn't have 1 million followers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we care if these people have status, which they do? Why do we care if they espouse some view that we don't have? Yeah,
Because we put them up there for representation and now they're no longer representing us.
they're not representing us. Yeah, why does that bother us? And again, we have the Kevin Hart example. We maybe. What do you mean by that?
Because, well, I'm your fan, you're the reason you're out there,
You should reflect my worldview. Why?
because you gave them that power.
Ah, maybe. All right, so you're getting into like thesis territory, actually. Which I'm gonna go ahead and say is a segue. Yeah, because we're getting short enough on time. One big idea. We haven't quite solved this one, but one big idea might be, because I think it ties both of these together, is as fans, and even though if you're not a Kevin Hart fan, which is like those people exist, but like a person who likes him, right? You feel betrayed or you feel let down or some version of that when this happens, you know? And you're saying one big reason might be He owes what he has to us. The power he wields, maybe over the top of us. This, if you're like a really big fan of his, right? He owes that to people who now, when they read those tweets, they realize like they don't share his worldview, whatever. What you're trying to describe here is almost like, I like the way you put it, like we gave him that power, and now we're saying that he doesn't deserve that power or whatever. People have the same conversations about governments, by the way. Legit, like when a congressman or whatever, like there's a scandal and they want to recall that person, it's because I was like, dude, we voted you into office and now you're going to do this? Like, you don't represent us. We gave you power, which means we can take it away. It's exactly how we talk about government, which is weird. Which means I like it a lot, by the way. That's a cool, if you're going to make an argument where I'm like, what? And it makes sense like that, that's cool, okay. That's one possibility for this paper, is this question of power and how we, you might argue, unconsciously hand it to these celebrities. I think we probably do, right? And what it looks like when they let us down somehow, and maybe we try to take that power back. That's an admission that we give them power. All of that is an argument. That's great. That's one idea. Why else? I want to get at least one other option up here, and then I'll start winding it down. I'll let you guys go. I don't know if that entices you at all. I see I got your attention, so we get out of here. Let's buckle down. What again? I'll put it this way because this seemed to give you a little bit of traction. Why do we give a shit? Why do we care if Kevin Hart hosts the Oscars after a homophobic tweet? Why do some other people seem to care a whole lot when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee before a football game? I'm trying to think of other examples. Those are the first two that come to my mind. Just why do we care when a celebrity, I don't know if you can think of one that you guys might care more about. These are like older examples. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe because people feel fooled into who they thought he was.
This question of betrayal. Maybe. Yeah, and go ahead. No, you're good, man. What's up?
Because if he's presenting as a relatable /
Yeah.
approachable person, a
Yeah.
relatable person would never say those kinds of things.
We would like to think at least,
Mhm.
right? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. I mean, so one other possibility is the sense of betrayal that we've talked about before with other people. I think the other one, the big one, was the Ned Fulmer guy, because he was like the wife guy, which the older you get, you will learn this. If anyone's big personality trait is like they love their wife, they are absolutely cheating on their wife. That is 100% what that means. So just don't worry about that next time. But we feel betrayed. You sold us on this idea. We trusted you, right? You'll have that language. And when you're betrayed, well, I'll ask, what do you want?
Revenge?
Yes. You want retribution. You want justice. You want revenge. We want revenge on Kevin Hart. That's wild. And I like that language too, because it's actually not justice. Revenge is not justice. Justice is legal. Justice is, you do this, we decided as a society, you go to jail for this long, blah, blah, blah. Revenge.
It was made to keep you from getting revenge.
Revenge is personal. It's eye for an eye, right? Yeah. That's different. And it's not what you hear most of the time, right? Why are we coming after this guy? It was like, because it's the right thing to do. I say, if you read all the comments, it doesn't sound like people are worried about the right thing to do. It sounds like they're trying to dox him and find this motherfucker, right? It's different. It's very different. That's good. So what does any of this mean? For the paper, I want to reiterate, what you don't want to do is simply look at the response and then tell me whether or not you think it's a good thing to do. That's not what we're here for. But even if you did that, all right, bummer, you got to change something. But you've probably aptly described whatever the response was. In this case, not overreaction, strong reaction. Why? Why did we react so strongly to Kevin Hart? This is a banger start, if I'm being honest with you, of a roadmap, little baby thesis we're kind of cooking down here. Great. This is what the paper needs to do, though. This is the direction you got to head in, no matter what you're writing about. Okay? You trying to take a picture? Okay, I'll move. The other thing I want to remind you about, and then I'll take another round of questions if anybody has any, then I'll let you go. Body paragraphs. These don't change either. These are exactly the same as we've done all semester. Okay? Topic sentence, evidence, analysis. Of course, the difference might be if you were doing this before in your introduction, it's likely you were doing this in your body paragraphs as well. Okay? So you got to go change those. That will suck. It will suck a lot less than whatever you will get on your paper if you don't change it. Let's be real with you. The other things I want to remind you about when it comes to those body paragraphs starts with evidence. I know we've done this all semester, but sometimes it seems like you guys forget. Specific evidence, whether it's a quotation or some detail, some argument somebody made, whatever. Pull that evidence and then talk to me about it. What does it mean? How does it tie into any of this? What does it tell us about us, our reaction? That's always what you're aiming at in this paper, okay? The last thing I will remind you of, please, do not bury me in evidence. You guys will do this. You know you will do it. The paper I looked at yesterday, he had some good stuff, especially in the body of his paper once he got past this, okay? First paragraph we looked at, 5 or 6 line quotation. Be serious. No. 2 lines max, maybe 3. You need room. The same way we talked about this, back before we had all our notes, you will bury your argument in information. And you will run out the shot clock. And you will not give me an argument. And it will not go well. Give yourself space. You need evidence. I am not saying that. But if you go on and on and on and on, kind of like I'm doing right now, with your evidence, you will not give yourself room to make an argument. Okay? Give yourself that room. That's my spiel. It went on, admittedly, longer than I wanted it to. Probably longer than you did as well. Any other questions or confusion or about anything we talked about? Papers due Friday night. I want to say it one more time. Think about what your Friday night is likely to look like. If you're a really fun-having kind of person, please don't tell yourself that you'll get home after you do all the fun things and you'll write the paper. Don't be that guy.
Because you're not going to do it.
That's a silly, it's a silly mistake to make. It's a silly mistake to make. So maybe yours is due a little earlier, whatever it is. Like, figure out a real deadline, get the paper in. Then you can start thinking about the project. Project is way less stress, right? We got time on that one. But knock out the paper first. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.